Bernie, AOC, Mandani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think people know that yet. I don't think people realize we already have a lot of socialism. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, food stamps, veterans benefits, Pell Grants, COVID-era payments, farm subsidies, disability payments, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, corporate.
What happens when one of America's most prominent liberal voices decides to stop protecting his own party and starts dismantling it instead? Bill Maher has spent decades on the left. He's defended Democrats through culture wars, election losses, and every wave of controversy in between. But something shifted. And on this night, in front of a live audience, Maher didn't come to entertain. He came with receipts. What he said about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders, and the future of the Democratic Party sent shockwaves through the room. And the silence that followed said just as much as the applause. This is the moment a lot of people have been waiting for, and a lot of others never saw coming. Maher's central argument was this: the politicians dominating the progressive wing of the Democratic Party aren't actually Democrats. They're democratic socialists. And according to Maher, most American voters haven't fully grasped what that distinction means in practice. He backed the point by walking through the long list of social programs that already exist in the United States. His message was clear. The question isn't whether America has socialist-leaning programs. It does. The real question is what exactly democratic socialists are proposing beyond that, and more importantly, whether voters are ready for the answer.
He says so many people in this country hate women. Oh, geez. Even the guy at the party who pulls out a guitar is like, way to ruin the fun.
That CNN poll landed like a grenade in the middle of the conversation. 58% of Americans believe the Democratic Party has gone too far left. That's not a fringe opinion. That's a majority. And Maher wasn't treating it like an abstract data point. He was treating it like a warning siren that the party keeps choosing to ignore. Then came the line about AOC and everyday conversation. Maher's argument wasn't just about policy, it was about atmosphere. He said progressive politics has started to feel like a presence at every dinner table, every family gathering, every casual conversation. And working-class voters, the people Democrats have historically relied on, aren't tuning out because Republicans suddenly got more appealing. They're tuning out because they feel condescended to. That distinction matters enormously. Losing voters to apathy is a very different problem than losing them to the other side, and often a harder one to fix. Then Maher read directly from the Democratic Socialists of America platform, and the room got quiet fast.
DSA are radicals about this concept, and radical economic policy is always ineluctably married to radical social policy. Their platform, for example, calls for completely open borders. Therefore, what Biden was doing, but more. You think you're going to win an election on that? This just seems like more extremism at a time when Americans are begging both parties, please, could just one of you act normal?
Open borders. That's the phrase that landed hardest. Maher wasn't framing it as a critique from the right. He was framing it as a political reality. He argued that in the current climate, supporting a fully open border isn't a bold progressive stance. It's an electoral liability. And he asked the question plainly, do you actually think you can win a national election on that platform? In a country where immigration has become one of the defining issues of the last decade, Maher's point cut through the noise. Voters across the political spectrum, including many traditional Democratic constituencies, have made clear they want enforcement, structure, and practical solutions. Not ideological purity, not more of the same. And when they don't hear answers that match their lived experience, they don't just stay home. They vote differently.
This country is not as mature as it thinks it is. We elected Obama, and clearly the country freaked out. We're still living in that freak out. We are not as progressed and evolved and intelligent as we think we are because we keep freaking out about this stuff.
Well,
you know?
The left freak out too. The left freaked out about a lot of too.
What did they freak out about?
Gender, race, parenthood, schools, homelessness, crime, the border, education. Like we stopped being a scientific people.
The exchange about who actually freaked out was one of the most revealing moments of the night, because Maher's list wasn't short. Gender, race, parenting, schools, homelessness, crime, the border, education. These aren't niche political flashpoints. These are the issues that come up at school board meetings, around kitchen tables, in barbershops, and break rooms across the country. And Maher's argument was that Democrats didn't just stumble on these issues. They retreated from evidence-based reasoning in some of the very debates where facts should have been the anchor. That's a striking charge coming from someone who has spent his career defending liberal causes. And it raised a question that hung in the air long after the segment ended. When did being on the left start to feel like it required leaving your common sense at the door?
With communists, that human was no longer selfish. In America today, that human is no longer born male or female. And obesity is not something that affects health. You can be healthy at any size. Really, we voted on it. A formerly serious magazine last year published with a straight face an article called "Separating Sports Doesn't Make Sense." Yes, it does. Because again, we haven't reinvented Homo sapiens since Crystal Pepsi came out. I've spent 3 decades on TV mocking Republicans who said climate change was just a theory, and now I've got to deal with people who say, you know what else is just a theory?
The magazine article was the moment Maher shifted from political analysis to something more personal. He'd spent 30 years calling out climate denial on the right. 30 years arguing that science should be the baseline, the non-negotiable starting point for serious policy. And now he was watching some of those same standards get quietly dismantled from within his own ideological camp. When a respected publication runs a straight-faced piece questioning whether separating sports by sex makes any sense, Maher argued, "You're not just losing an argument. You're losing the people who might have been your most natural allies, parents, coaches, athletes, educators, the very voters who are willing to accept nuance on almost everything, until they feel like reality itself is being contested. Once that trust breaks," he said, "it doesn't come back easily."
We do have our own Red Guard here, but they do their rampaging on Twitter. Here's a cute example from a couple of years ago. The banjo player from Mumford & Sons tweeted that he liked a book that apparently had not been approved by the revolution. So, of course, he had to delete the tweet, then take time away from the band. Oh my God, you mean this could have affected Mumford & Sons? And then the cringing apology, "I have come to better understand the pain caused by the book I endorsed." Pain? From a book? Unless he hit the drummer over the head with it. What happened to "I can read whatever I want"? Don't worry, I'm a musician. It won't happen again.
The Mumford & Sons story might have gotten a laugh, but the point underneath it was dead serious. A musician tweets that he enjoyed a book, not a manifesto, not an endorsement of a political movement, a book. And within days, he's issuing a public apology and stepping away from his own band. Maher wasn't mocking the musician. He was mourning something, the idea that curiosity, reading, and independent thought had somehow become dangerous. that you now needed pre-approval before admitting what you found interesting, and he connected that moment to something far larger than any single election. The DSA, he argued, isn't just pushing an economic agenda, it's actively trying to reshape the ideological foundation of the Democratic Party. And the people being pushed out in the process, union households, immigrant communities, teachers, small business owners, are precisely the voters Democrats cannot afford to lose.
See Bernie Sanders' rally in Idaho last month. Someone threw a flag over an American flag, and the crowd erupted in approval. What should have happened after that is one of the adults on stage should have told their young, loyal followers, this is not a symbol of freedom. This is.
The flag moment in Idaho was the one that clearly bothered Maher the most. Not the act itself, but the silence that followed it. No one on that stage said anything. No one redirected the crowd. No one drew a line. And for Maher, that silence was a choice. He argued that voters, especially voters who don't spend much time following political news, pay closer attention to those unscripted moments than most politicians realize. What a leader does when things get uncomfortable tells you far more than any rehearsed speech. The absence of a response, Maher suggested, becomes its own kind of answer.
It's so odd about this time that we're living in. For all the talk about fighting for the soul of America, nobody seems to like it very much. Too many liberals give the impression that to them, America's just a big ugh. The red, white, and blue. A country that started out bad will always be bad, founded on an unrelenting history of sucking and unable to change. But we have changed a lot. Democrat Cori Bush tweeted, "This land is stolen land and black people still aren't free." And this was on the 4th of July. Really? Not that I give a shit about the 4th of July. I've never been a rah-rah guy. But I am a perspective guy. And that's what too much of the left has lost, perspective. 72% of black people under 30 are optimistic about their future in America. Way more than white people the same age. And as far as the land goes, yes, I guess we could change the name of Captain America to Captain Stolen Land. But honestly, to all the people who start every public event now with one of those land acknowledgements, where they say, "I'm standing on land that was stolen from the proud indigenous people of the Chumash tribe," I say either give it back or shut up.
The 4th of July tweet from Congresswoman Cori Bush became Maher's entry point into a larger conversation about political messaging and its unintended consequences. He wasn't dismissing the genuine historical grievances embedded in what she said. He was questioning the timing, the framing, and above all, the effect. His counterpoint was a specific finding. 72% of black Americans under 30 say they feel optimistic about their future in this country, a figure that outpaces their white peers the same age. For Maher, that wasn't just an interesting statistic. It was a challenge to the narrative that America is irredeemably broken. He said the left has confused critique with contempt, and voters can feel the difference.
In the Democratic Party keep encouraging and not rebuking the idea that America is cringe and the people who run Gaza are great. The Democrats are doomed. Alyssa Slotkin's right. Liberals are weak and woke, especially the white ones, and they indulge all sorts of from their kids, a pattern that then continues on in the Democratic Party.
Maher's critique of land acknowledgements was deliberately uncomfortable. He wasn't dismissing indigenous history. He was pointing at what he sees as a gap between symbolic gesture and meaningful action. Say the words at the start of every event, he argued, or actually do something about it. The performance of values without the follow-through, in his view, is one of the things that makes many voters deeply skeptical of progressive politics. They hear the language, they watch the ritual, and then they notice that nothing actually changes. That pattern, Maher argued, is exactly what Alyssa Slotkin and other moderate Democrats have been quietly warning about for years. The idea that the loudest voices in the party are increasingly speaking a dialect that most of the country simply doesn't recognize.
You have to make a choice here. Do you want to be progressive or excessive? Team drastic or team plastic? When Kylie's lifestyle becomes uncool and unpopular, and you stop loving Bitcoin and stop thinking that stuffing your face is harmless, I'll take you seriously. Until then, shut up about how older generations ruin the planet. We get it. Boomers dropped the ball on the environment. We did. We dropped it like it was hot.
Maher's challenge to young progressives was blunt but pointed. He wasn't attacking their causes. He was demanding consistency. If environmental collapse is the defining crisis of our time, then the lifestyle choices of the people making that argument have to reflect it. If wealth inequality is the central injustice, then the culture surrounding progressive politics can't uncritically celebrate the kind of consumption that drives it. Maher wasn't letting older generations off the hook either. He admitted plainly that his generation dropped the ball on the environment in a serious way. But he argued that moral authority requires more than a well-crafted post. It requires showing up differently in your actual life.
Had some deprogramming. She could be such a fantastic candidate.
What do you mean deprogramming?
Well, she just doesn't. She's never going to resonate with people outside of the bubble that she lives in the very, very far left.
Well,
and that, I mean, the New York Times, of all people, the people I've been, squabbling with for the last 7, 8, 10 years, whatever, when I was all about, Democrats have gone too far left, they just put out a huge editorial basically saying exactly what I've been saying.
what, that she's too far left?
Yes.
Deprogramming was the word that stopped the conversation cold. Maher said it almost casually, that AOC with some deprogramming could be a genuinely compelling national candidate. What he meant, and what he elaborated on, was that her politics are perfectly calibrated for a very specific political ecosystem, one that exists in a handful of districts and on certain corners of the internet, but that ecosystem doesn't represent the country. And now, even outlets that spent years amplifying progressive priorities are beginning to say the same thing out loud. The New York Times editorial board, Maher noted pointedly, had essentially arrived at the same conclusion he'd been arguing for nearly a decade. The party drifted too far left on social issues after 2016, and it's been paying for that drift ever since.
Thanks. I've done autopsies on 2024, and they all came up with the same message. Move to the center. Even the New York Times, which did so much to promote woke politics, now says the partisans are wrong. Moving to the center is the way to win. And Democrats should recognize the party moved too far left on social issues after Obama left office. Gosh, if only someone had been saying that all along.
Every serious post-election autopsy of 2024 pointed in the same direction. Move toward the center. Not as a retreat, but as a recalibration. Maher's final argument was less about who was right and more about who was listening. He's been making this case for years, often to considerable pushback from within his own political world. And his point at the end wasn't triumphant. It was concerned, because being right about a problem doesn't solve it. The Democratic Party, in his view, still has time to make the shift. But that window, he suggested, isn't staying open indefinitely. Whether voters agree, and what they plan to do about it, is the question this entire documentary was building toward.